as key levers to changing our food system and decolonizing it. And the decolonizing is key. We have 8 wonderful speakers who will have 5 minutes each. We will try, if they keep to that time, to have some questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, which is the second box from the right at the bottom of your screen. We also have interpretation in English, Chinese, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. So please select the language of your choice and welcome to this first session. Now, I'm not sure if Kazumi from Japan, who is one of the historical actors of everything here, could join us. I don't see her among the speakers for the moment, which is a shame because she was going to give the historical setting of community-supported agriculture, which goes even beyond the 25 years of food sovereignty to the late 1960s, early 70s. But we will come to her if she does manage to join in a minute. And we will go straight to Brazil to hear from Andrea, from the Dona Maria farm. Maria Rodriguez is a peasant farmer from Bela Vista settlement. They are part of the landless people's movement, and she's been working for more than 20 years in the fight for land. She farms for 2 CSAs in São Paulo state, and she is also an agronomic engineer and a member of the educational program. So Maria, Andrea, over to you for this first intervention.
Bom dia. Bom dia. Primeiro, agradecer, muita gratidão a esse momento. Sou Maria Rodrigues, agricultora, e falo desse lugar de agricultora e cultivadora de alimentos. Na minha pergunta, eu vejo a importância dessa conexão da soberania alimentar e a economia solidária. Nesse contexto em que a gente está vivendo, é uma luta na preocupação de quando se fala em soberania alimentar, de que cada ser humano tenha seus alimentos com os valores nutricionais completo para o desenvolvimento humano, a evolução humana. Isso contrapõe com a lei de mercado posta, que quem tem dinheiro come, quem não tem não come. Nas terras conquistadas pela luta pela reforma agrária, pela abundância de alimento e soberania alimentar, cumpre um papel importante junto agora com a rede de comunidades de economia solidária, na questão de olhar para esse contexto. A nossa produção de alimentos, além de estar disponibilizando esse processo de construção e fortalecimento, tanto da soberania alimentar, como da economia solidária, também olhando os que ainda não estão inseridos na economia solidária e os que não estão inseridos em acesso a essa alimentação. Então, quando me pergunta dessa conexão, eu vejo que economia solidária e soberania alimentar andam juntas nesse momento tão interessante e importante para a humanidade. Aqui eu vivo e tenho participação bastante profunda com a CSA Coração, que abrange 3 cidades aqui no entorno do meu assentamento conquistado na luta pela terra, pela reforma agrária do Movimento Sem Terra, aqui no Brasil, e também da CSA Sorocaba, que abrange num total de aproximadamente 60 coagricultores dessas duas CSAs, e que esses coagricultores têm uma visão muito importante na questão social, na busca do conhecimento, a aproximação e a luta pela soberania alimentar, com o viés de preocupação da relação com a natureza, meio ambiente, nas questões que liga do como produzir esse alimento, dentro de uma proposta da agroecologia, da biodinâmica, e isso é muito importante, porque não é qualquer alimento, é como que esse alimento está sendo produzido para que proporcione, de fato, novas relações, e essas novas relações estão sendo edificada na economia solidária e na luta pela soberania alimentar. Participamos de várias doações nesse período de 2 anos de pandemia do Covid, junto com esses coagricultores das CSAs que eu participo e de outros que participam dessa rede da economia solidária, Terra Viva, aqui da região de Sorocaba, e outros interessados nessa questão de promover a consciência em relação a um novo jeito de se relacionar na produção de alimentos sem veneno, com relação respeituosa com o meio ambiente, a fauna e a flora, plantando árvores, fazendo sistemas agroflorestais. O alimento que sai desses nossos cultivos está contido nesse contexto dessa construção de um novo paradigma para a produção de alimentos no campo.
Thank you so much. I've been so impressed by the way the MST have been really working beyond solidarity economy to make food part of the commons during the pandemic. And I think it's a really important aspect in terms of decolonizing and changing the whole system. Now we have Kazumi is here with us. Kazumi, welcome. You are from Japan, which is where the community-supported agriculture movement has its roots, with the Minamata disease, where the housewives and the Japanese organic agriculture movement came together to create Teikei. So maybe you can tell us very briefly in 5 minutes about the principles of Teikei and how this today has led to working on food sovereignty, solidarity economy, and decolonizing the system, please. Over to you, Kazumi.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I'm so thrilled to see my friends who I met at Greek, and I'm also so glad to meet new friends. I also thank Urgenci's board members and staff, and my special gratitude goes to the organizers of Symposium in Manaus, Brazil. I congratulate 10th anniversary of the CSA Brazil. I'm so happy for you. Now I have an announcement, all of you. Just 10 days ago, we, the Japan Organic Agriculture Association, celebrated our 50th anniversary. It's my pleasure to making this announcement today in front of you. I thank Judith, who kindly gives me this opportunity. So 50 years ago, the JOR made the first step to transform Japan's food system into a more sustainable one and create more equitable and just society. So today, in my speech, I'll give a brief description of Joel's experience about Teikei, which is a Japanese version of community-supported agriculture, with hoping that our experience would provide some insights to promote CSA around the world. So now, why and how we start Teikei? At the time that our organization founded, Japanese agriculture had a lot of problems of pesticides and other chemical contaminations. In the 1960s, DDT and other toxic chemicals were used for farming across Japan. Soils, air, and water were contaminated. Many farmers who sprayed chemicals became sick. Toxic chemicals were also found in breast milk, which was scared many people. People who were worried about the negative impacts of pesticides, including farmers, consumers, scientists, and medical doctors, joined the JOR. The founders of the JOR wanted to promote chemical-free organic agriculture and transform the society into a more sustainable one. They thought, since food is such fundamental things for humans, changing food systems is a good starting point for changing society. So in those days, organic farming was not established in Japan. We even didn't have a name for organic farming. Farmers have to develop organic farming techniques through trials and errors. Organic market, one of the futures in Japanese organic world was that there was no organic market in Japan. There was no natural stores carrying organic products when we started. This means that organic farmers had difficult time market their product. On the other hand, there are consumers in our members. Most of them were mothers who were raising children. They were actively sought chemical-free food for their children. So organic farmers and consumers met through our organization, and they started direct marketing of organic products. This is the beginning of Teikei history. In other words, Teikei was not started as a well-planned project, but rather started based on practical demand. But these people were very energetic to criticize industrial agriculture and wanted to stop use pesticides and chemicals contamination in food. You may think that Japanese are quiet, but our members are much different. They like talking. They never stop talking. They discussed a lot about what is farming, how to decommodify agriculture products, and so on. At the same time, farmer groups and consumer groups discussed about roles and objectives about their direct trading. Although each group had their own roles and objectives, some common things were included, such as reciprocity between farmers and consumers, decommodify food, fair prices, securing farmers' livelihood, and so on. When members practiced Teikei, these rules and objectives became a sort of values and ethics. Moreover, the members of JOWA saw Teikei with ethical practice are essential to promote true organic farming. In 1978, after several years of practice Teikei, we developed the 10 principles of Teikei based on our members' experience. It reflected our philosophy of organic farming and lifestyles as alternative food system to replace conventional food systems. Since then, the Teikei principle has guided us how we act when we engage in Teikei. It also facilitated dialogue when farmers and consumers had some difficulties and disagreement. So, always, it's difficult to perfectly follow the 10 principles. The 10 principles always tell us how we should act, especially at a difficult time. We often say that we are making progress day by day and year by year to achieve the goals embodied by the principles of Teikei.
Kazumi, can you
Yes.
maybe accelerate a little bit, because
Okay, all right, just one more minute.
Thank you.
And it's been everyday practice by these people. When we look back, we worked on farms together and shared harvest together. We stumbled over something and then overcome that. Or sometimes we start over from nothing. We celebrated our partnership and appreciated true connection to natural world. We smiled, cried, laughed, and talked a lot. In that sense, our 50 years of history has been cultivating Teikei spirit every season. Right now, the JOR has facing many challenges. However, I would say the JOR is stronger than ever because we have friends all over the world and we unite with you. We like to learn from your experience. We like to exchange various informations and effective practice from you. And together, let's regain our wounded earth with CSS spirit. And let's transform our food system into really sustainable and equitable ones together. Thank you very much.
Thank you for setting the context of 50 years for us, Kazumi. It was very precious. And I think that sharing our happiness, our joys, our successes, and also our challenges together and with the natural world, with nature, as you say, is a very important part of decolonizing the system. So we thank you for everything you've contributed. So from Japan, we now go back across the world to Mexico, to Josefina Sendejas. Josefina, you come to food sovereignty from solidarity economy. So what is the relevance to you in Mexico, and what benefits have you seen from the movement? What can you contribute to this session, please?
Hello all of you. First of all, I want to say, Judith Kitchman, a big thank you for 6 years of hard work and remarkable achievements as a president of Urgenci International. I put this photo, precious photo of her, close to me as a little tribute to you, Judith. And I invite you all, the panelists, to do the same to celebrate Judith. Thank you, Judith. So I try to read very quickly. I try to speak about the relationship, the link between solidarity economy and food sovereignty, and how this link works. Solidarity economy is both an emergent field of study, which I work in, and a social movement. Something similar happens with agroecology, which is at the foundations of food sovereignty. This means that theory and practice have been developing at the same time as a way to respond to the civilization crisis that we face as humanity from decades ago. Besides, solidarity economy is one of the 10 principles of agroecology. In Mexico and Latin America, the economic crisis has generated by globalization and the neoliberal system forced millions of people to seek sustenance out of the formal labor market and organize themselves in different ways. At the same time, governments fail to provide basic public services and social protection, while facilitating business for multinational corporations related to food and agriculture. One of the effects of these conditions was the spread of the neoliberal diet worldwide, but especially in the developing countries, as Mexico and Brazil. This diet, as described by scholar Gerardo Otero, is all the contrary to food sovereignty, and also express this colonization of diet. Moreover, the social movements around food sovereignty are a clear response against it. The neoliberal diet consists in a variety of overprocessed, energy-dense products that can hardly be considered food. But due to huge subsidies to the agro-industry, they have become cheaper than real fresh food. Hence, half of the world population cannot afford a healthy diet today. So the human right to food and nutrition has been strongly compromised. The food system, as they function now, are designed to produce money, not food, as Bill Mollison has said. Solidarity economy is oriented to allow enlarged reproduction of life, while capitalist economy seeks the enlarged reproduction of capital. Therefore, it is quite difficult to reconcile both. And in order to sustain and reproduce life, we need to produce and deliver quality food for everyone. This implies the transformation of the way food systems operate and also the economy. So in order to extend and strengthen food sovereignty, we need a different economy based on solidarity and cooperation, but also highly organized and supported by governments. There is no doubt that both social movements are growing in Mexico and all over Latin America. In a recent research project I coordinated in the center and south of Mexico, we surveyed more than 300 local initiatives related to agroecology, food production, and distribution. They were organized in very different ways. Some of them were as CSA, others as farmer markets, organic markets, consumer and producers cooperatives, etc. Beyond their differences, about 90% considered themselves as a part of the solidarity economy. This makes a lot of sense. Although there have not been formal and systematic approaches to link both movements, it seems clear that the people creating alternatives to the neoliberal diet know well that this can only be opposed through the sustainable, fair, and close food production. And this entails organization and solidarity. Sadly, we found that in Mexico, we have not clear and strong policies yet related to support food sovereignty and social and solidarity economy. Most efforts have been sustained by members of the initiatives, and this can many times represent double work for female members. So this is a gender issue. Other important problems we must address is the access of the disadvantaged families to quality food on a regular basis. The pandemics aggravated the malnutrition among this population, and it is expected that for 2050, 9 of 10 Mexicans will suffer from obesity if things don't change. Eating is a political act. Changing the way we produce, deliver, share, and consume food is a radical agenda. It will take many social movements, economical, ecological, and cultural, to reach this transformation. But we are already on the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josefina. I think you posed some of the most fundamental questions that we do need to answer as social movements. And the question of policy is really a critical one. And as we advance as social movements, certain states are blocking all possibilities to advance in terms of policy. So we do need to bring pressure to bear from the ground up as social movements to make this happen. I also thank you for bringing the gender perspective. I really appreciate that. And the nutritional aspects, which are very critical to decolonizing our food system. So I will move now a little bit north of you to the United States, to Marcus. Marcus, you are one of the joint coordinators of RIPES Intercontinental, which is the global social solidarity economy movement. And you've been working a lot on the question of community gardens and community land trusts. Now, these are key issues because people in disadvantaged communities, as Josefina very rightly said, are fighting and struggling for social inclusion, the right to food, and the right to produce their own food. So thank you for being with us today. And maybe you can give us a few minutes of your thoughts.
Sure thing. Thank you so much for the invitation, Judith, and congratulations. Let's see. So yeah, from my work here in North Carolina, also good morning from the Southern United States, everyone. My work here, we're starting from the understanding that justice requires equity, and that equity requires redistributing wealth and influence, political influence and decision-making. And so from our standpoint, to redistribute wealth and influence, we're starting with our local and regional food system. It's just the most kind of accessible and salient place to start from with where we're at in our community. And we're asking two main questions. So one, how do we increase access to land? And two, how do we increase access to food markets and market alternatives to decommodify food? And so to answer these questions, we've turned to the solidarity economy. The access to land is paramount to our ability to be able to cultivate food and really just to preserve our neighborhood as a whole. Our neighborhood is mostly low income, mostly Black and brown neighbors, and the pressures of gentrification and all of the so-called development going on around our neighborhood grow stronger every day. And so we know that if we don't do anything, it's only a matter of time before everyone has to move out or is forced out. And so the idea of community land trust is really speaking to us on that level. This is a neighborhood that's historically suffered from racist housing and urban development programs over the past 100+ years. In fact, cities, like many cities across the United States, our city had not one, but two highways laid through the middle of it that effectively cut off the Black community, displaced upwards of 10,000 Black families, and really destroyed, had such horrible economic and social impacts on what was a vibrant Black community. And so we're still suffering those effects today. And so we need new alternatives and we need new solutions. And so we see community land trusts as a way to secure land from the pressures of the real estate market and put it under community control, like it should always have been. And we're hoping that this helps preserve the neighborhood, but also create spaces for food production for our network of city-based urban farmers. And ultimately, we believe that if we can have control of our own land and produce our own.
We've lost your sound, Marcus. We've lost your sound. Now, have you accidentally muted yourself? No sound. No. Maybe you can exit and rejoin us again. No, I think you may have to exit the Zoom and come back onto the link again to try and do this. So moving forward, I'm sorry, Marcus, because I'm going to keep the show moving here. I think that the aspects of maintaining control within the community of our economy, of our food system are really critical, because if we depend on the agribusiness to provide us with our food, as Josephina said, we really do have a major problem on our hands from a nutritional point of view. Marcus, I really think you're going to have to actually exit the Zoom and come back in again to get the sound back. Maybe, I don't know. We have one or two questions in the chat, which don't seem to be going into the Q&R. I don't know why. The Q&R is maybe now. I'm trying to open it.
Judith, if I can come in on
sure.
this, it seems we've been trying to solve that. It seems the Q&A cannot be active for some reason. It's open and so on, but it cannot work. So we'll have to use the chat for the questions and answers. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's fine. Marcus, I really feel terrible about having to cut you here, but somehow we lost the sound. So there were two questions put into the chat. The first one was, because I think we'll just have a very quick break for two questions, no more, and then continue with the second round of speakers. The first was, what are the challenges encountered by CSA in Japan? And that question comes to us from China. And the second question was, what do consumers get out of CSA? Okay, the farmers get a decent livelihood, but what do the consumers get? So any of our first round of speakers who would like to answer those, or even the second round, we have a few minutes here to answer those two questions. I think the first is really for Kazumi. So maybe you can take that from the Chinese network, what your challenges are in the TK network today. Take 1 or 2 minutes to answer that. Kazumi, are you able to answer that? Thank you.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes, what are the challenges of facing the TK network? And it's the Chinese network who have asked that question.
Japanese challenges is now, after 50 years, our members are getting old. So it's a time of replacing younger generations, but the younger generations are perhaps not interested in how to say, majority of young people are not interested in solidarity economy or a reciprocal community relationship. So that's a big challenge for us. Thank you.
How to bring new young people on board is really critical. I think that this question is true in certain other countries around the world as well. And on the other hand, we do have a lot of extraordinary young people joining our movement as well in some countries. What do consumers get out of it? Maria, Josefina, could you maybe answer that question each in 1 or 2 minutes?
Excuse me, what's the question about consumers leaving CSAs?
No, what are the benefits for consumers of joining a CSA?
Well, there are lots of benefits. First of all, we got quality food. Quality food, and at least in Mexico, we are not interested in labeling or certification. Just we trust the producers we are close to, and we make community at the same time by belonging to these networks. We secure an income for small and close community of producers, and we can improve health of ourselves and our families. So I think those are the greatest benefits we have, and we are inventing different relationships, social and economic. So I think that's enough to justify our belonging to these networks.
I thank you, Josefina, and we're going to have somebody from the youth constituency later in this panel discussion talking about that specifically, and he's under 20 and a student, so we'll come to him in a little while. So we can also ask you, Maria, from your perspective in Brazil, what do consumers, eaters, as we prefer sometimes to say, get from all of this? Maria.
É muito interessante que essa pergunta, ela é também um desafio para o nosso avanço. Mas aqui no Brasil é tudo muito caro. O pessoal que tem mais uma consciência da questão ambiental e vê que a economia solidária privilegia essa questão do circuito curto, ligado à questão da preservação ambiental, ligado também com essa questão de contribuir com a família agricultora, que está tendo uma evasão muito séria do campo com o avanço do agronegócio. Essas questões das queimadas das matas e dos cerrados no Brasil para produção não de alimento de verdade, mas das commodities, isso está tendo várias pessoas que estão tendo consciência disso. No último período, agora, no início das chuvas, da primavera, teve grandes ventanias com altos poeirões feito pelo modo do agronegócio fazer suas plantações e deixar o campo com alta mecanização, e isso trouxe um pouco de medo à população de olhar também para o outro lado. Então, do ponto de vista do consumidor que adquire uma consciência mais brasileira, latino-americana, ligada ao meio ambiente, a diversidade que a gente tem de fauna e flora, esse é o maior benefício, porque, do ponto de vista econômico, pode ser que dá a impressão de outros. Aqui no Brasil também a questão da saúde alimentar, aumento da obesidade, por outro lado também o aumento da desnutrição e por conta da fome mesmo, de volta, também essa questão da violência ligado a isso. Então, o consumidor que olha para o lado de uma alimentação produzida com a relação ótima, maravilhosa com a natureza, com amor ao alimento, sabendo que essa nutrição é completa e saudável, ele ganha muito com essa questão. Até os convênios de saúde no Brasil têm problemas no enfrentamento com essa questão das doenças. Isso tem sido um avanço. Universidades com pequenos núcleos de estudantes debatendo essas questões. Também as nutricionistas, já tem várias nutricionistas se organizando, os banquetaços aqui se organizando para ver de onde vem esse alimento, que é da agricultura familiar, que produz aqui no Brasil mais de 80% da diversidade alimentícia que está aqui no país. Temos muita questão muito importante, que às vezes os canais de comunicação comum não divulga isso. Divulga que o agronegócio, o agro é pop, mas o agro é poeira, é morte, é doença, é contaminação no leite materno, é obesidade, é uma alimentação de ração sem valor nutricional. Essas questões estão já em debate muito importante. Uma juventude caminhando mais em busca da diversidade alimentar no vegetal. Isso está muito importante.
So we've really touched on the nutritional aspects. We've touched on community control of land, but that should also include seeds and water, which are equally important. We've touched on the need for a value system and the need to really fight hunger, malnutrition, and the agribusiness with everything that involves. I think we will move on now to the second round. One of the things that Urgenci has also been working on in parallel is not just agriculture, but also community-supported fisheries, because fish protein is a very important part of so many cultures around the world. And we have the good fortune to be working with the North American Marine Alliance and Local Catch. And I would like to hand over to their food justice person, Jonathan, to tell us how you see food sovereignty and solidarity economy and food justice as important levers in decolonizing the food system. Please, John, over to you.
Yeah, for sure. First off, also want to say congratulations, Judith, to 6 years with Urgenci. But yeah, in terms of food justice and food sovereignty in the fishing world, you'll see a lot of parallels between what's happening in fishing communities as to what has happened in farming communities. In the United States, I think something that's important to note is that the type of consolidation and corporate takeover of the food systems in the seafood world hasn't gotten to the same point that it has in the farming world. So we're actually poised in a really interesting position to kind of learn from the lessons of the farming world and see how bad it can turn out to see these corporations really take over. and and hopefully we can use these lessons to kind of stop it from getting to the same point it has in the farming world. And there's kind of two main barriers of entry in achieving some kind of food sovereignty. First off, there's just the technical structural barrier of the economic disadvantage that most communities face when compared to large corporations. And then there's also a type of barrier of entry just from the historical perspective of the United States, where Black and Indigenous folks have just been so pushed out of the system and so prevented from taking any real standing in their own communities. So first, to talk on the structural perspective a bit. In the United States, 80% of the fish we catch is exported, and the rest that's not exported is usually sold directly to restaurants. And over 85% of the seafood we consume is actually imported, which from the get-go is just an absurdity. And so most fisher folk we work with have no possible means to sell to their community, not even from a logistics point of view, but from a legal point of view. It's just not possible. And in the past 2 years, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the complete crisis in the food world that made, it actually opened up some points of entry for folks to start being able to sell to their communities. And so across North America, we help incubate. We hear people talk about community-supported agriculture all the time, and we're helping support community-supported fisheries in a similar way of just trying to get more folks to do direct-to-consumer type marketing. And we've been hearing stories of folks being through all the hardships of the pandemic, it is kind of lighting a fire in a lot of people to see how messed up our systems are, that it's giving them opportunities to create these new systems and do these kind of community supported fisheries and direct-to-consumer marketing. And within our network, we also, do programs such as, it's called the Scale Your Local Catch project, or a Scale Your Local Catch program, where we just have a network of experts help disseminate information to fisher folks in our network, to all the legal work, the taxation, labor laws, all that, to help promote more people being able to do direct-to-consumer marketing. And then, while it's great that we're doing all this structural work and doing all this work to, create small fishing markets in comparison to the corporate markets, one thing that has to be an intentional effort beyond that is the racial justice aspect, because we can bring down big business all we want, but if we're not intentionally trying to restore Black and Indigenous fisher folk who have been dispossessed from the system, then it's not real food sovereignty, because an important part of food sovereignty is the cultural aspect of food sovereignty. And so there's the story of the Black watermen in Southeast United States, and just how they've been removed from their ability to fish. And to this day, even in the past 2 years, there's been such a large number of very violent attacks on Black and Indigenous fisher folk across the continent. And so, in short, just building up the technical infrastructure for teaching and educating folks for how to build up their own direct-to-consumer markets, teaching people about why corporate consolidation is bad, and on the other side, teaching the history of like how racialized the food system has become, and how Black and Indigenous folks have just been so dispossessed is all different aspects of the work we're doing here in North America.
Thank you, John. I think this intentional aspect is something we do need to take up, perhaps with a stronger voice in terms of all our social inclusion work. And I really thank you for the elements you brought here to decolonizing the food system. It's been an important voice. I'd like to turn now to Klaus in Germany, to the Solavi network. I personally believe that one of the systems that the Solavi network has introduced, while it works very comfortably, is also one of the most revolutionary aspects of anything our movement has done so far, because it really puts the emphasis on changing the economic system in a very deep way. Klaus, can you maybe talk to us for 5 minutes about the aspects of what is called the bidding round, how people have a differentiated pay scale to pay for their CSA subscriptions in many Solavi groups?
Yes, sure, I can do that. And hello to everybody here from Germany, to all over the world. And from my side also, many congratulations to Urgenci. And a big thank you that I can speak here. What's a bidding round and how does it work? The basic idea of any CSA is that farmers supply the CSA members with local and organic food. And the costs of productions are commonly shared and paid by members, which is why at the beginning of every year, the farmers present their planned annual budget. The bidding round is a means to cover the costs for the year, while ensuring that the individual and different economic backgrounds and financial means of every member are taken into account. By making his individual bid, each member promises to pay its part of the annual budget through the bidden amount. Each bid is thereby a founding promise for the whole year or season. There are different ways of realizing a bidding round. The first one is the free bid without guiding amount. It's easy. By knowing the total amount needed for the year, the members are free to choose their bids. The second version is with guiding amount. Prior to the bidding round, the total amount needed for the year is divided by the number of members or possible shares of the harvest. It thus leads to an arithmetic average, which is then taken as a guiding value. Each member can now make a bid, taking into account his personal financial situation with relation to the guiding amount. Hereby is it useful to estimate the guiding amount a bit higher than the calculated average to leave some financial scope for those which led to bid. Maybe a second round is needed if the total amount is not covered by the first round's bid. If the second round as well fails to meet the financial need, a revision of the budget calculation should be considered, just as the option of consistently stocking the bids to cover the shortage. A model calculation with €1,000 shortage, €1,000 divided by 50 members, each member have to pay €20 more. In the other case of overbidding the annual budget, a consistent amount can be subtracted from the bids. Similarly, Elsewise, the group could think of projects to be supported by the surpluses, labor, salary, for example, or festivities. Here, a model calculation with €1,000 surplus, €1,000 divided by 50 members or shares. Each member subtracts €20 from the original bid. Under the pandemic came a third version up. We called it traffic light method. To avoid several rounds of bidding, each member can make 3 different bids. The green bid, I can easily pay this amount of money. The yellow bid, this amount is heavier but still possible to pay. And the red bid, this is absolute maximum. First, all green bids are summed up, and if they're not enough to pay the budget, the yellow bids are taken, and only at last means the red ones. And this traffic light method is great to use it online. So bidding rounds work with pens and papers or with a digital bidding form. Fine, so that was all I have to say from my side.
So basically, to a large extent, it comes back to the socialist idea that everybody contributes according to their means, but receives according to their needs.
Yes.
You know, it works. The magic is that it works. I just think we still need a strong policy overlay to support the entire system. But I think what you're doing, which is what Urgenci has adopted as their network contribution means, is really proof that this network and its many, many millions of members around the world really can go for this kind of thing. Not all members around the world are prepared, or all networks prepared to go as far as the German C'est la vie groups that are using this, but it is really something I wanted to highlight very strongly because I think it's one of the most exciting things that we do. Now, Kazumi, you talked about youth, young people, and getting them on board. I'd like to go to Ireland now and turn the floor over to Dimitri. Dimitri is still a teenager. He is a second-year student at Trinity College Dublin, and he is a member of a CSA in Dublin. So Dimitri, a lot of people tend to say and to think that CSA is a yuppie, elitist model. We've seen from Brazil that that really isn't the case. Would you guys stop showing all these photos of me? It's an embarrassment.
Briefly congratulating you on 13 years with Urgenci and 6 years as a president. I'm going to turn it off now to focus on what
Thank you, please. Let's just focus on what is really important. You are living on a very limited budget. How come CSA is affordable to you, and what are the challenges to you as a student who is a member of the CSA, please?
Well, there were a lot of very important things said today, and I'm just going to share my experiences on a very consumer simple level. And yes, I am a subscriber of a CSA of Ironbeg Farms in Dublin, and I pay €15 a week for my share, but I do get a reasonable amount of food every week. And I find, you know, going back to what Kazumi has said, I think we just simply have a huge amount of lack of information with the youth, because when I found out about the CSA, I was truly amazed by its possibilities for, you know, cooking and making sure that you're living a healthy lifestyle. Because even, you know, I think there seems to be this idea among youth that food needs to be very cheap and extremely, you know, affordable, and money should be spent on other things. But I think CSA is not only, you know, it's not only great, but it is affordable, in fact, because the amount of vegetables that I get for what can be considered about maybe 20% of an average student's budget per week, I get enough vegetables to last myself and my girlfriend every week. And I mean, we occasionally have people over, and I really don't think it is a concept that should be considered as something very elitist. In fact, when I went into our local organic shop trying to find similar veggies a few weeks before that, I realized that, you know, trying to buy the same amount of organic, healthy, sustainable local veg would be it would be like maybe 2 or 3 times the price of what it delivers. And there are so many benefits, to nutritional benefits and health benefits from a CSA, because I feel like in our world it is very complicated to buy to buy produce in shops, because there is a lot of political aspect and there's a lot of imported goods, and it takes a lot of effort to figure it out. Whereas with a CSA, I'm able to go every week and chat to my local farmer, what he has in store for me, and I don't have to choose, you know, what the hell I'm going to do. And, you know, I have plenty of stuff to think about as a student, and I'm just given these, you know, veggies, and I'm you know, if I don't know what to use, I can simply ask my farmer, and he shares some recipes. And, you know, occasionally, I think another great thing is that you get certain things that you don't find in a shop. For example, my girlfriend, she, you know, she's from Japan, she hasn't seen certain veggies in Ireland that she would love to use in cooking, which our farmer was able to provide, and she was shocked to see it. And I think that was great to see. But I certainly don't think that it is a yippee concept. I just think that there's a lot of misinformation, which is why there's not enough students consuming it, because I think there is a great amount of potential in my generation if only people knew their options. And I'm hoping to push it through our, you know, we have a food society and a sustainability society in my university. I'm hoping to push this idea and inform my peers. But from experience, when I have friends coming over and trying it, and I'm telling them that I got it in a share from a local farmer who grows very close to Dublin, they're shocked because they've never heard of this concept. And I think we really have to go back to the way it used to be, where you get your veggies locally, organically, and you support somebody's business yourself. And yeah, I think there's a lot there, and I think it's great.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. In France, there are quite a number of CSAs working with students, but that poses one issue. I was talking to one of the farmers who has a student CSA group recently, and he said the issue is that the biggest part of the production is during the summer, when of course the students are all away on holidays. So that is a bit of an issue. But yes, there is an increasing number of young people, and I really think it's very, very important that we support and educate them. And we do have Julia, who is one of our core CSA members in Europe, who is also representing youth at policy level. So I think, you know, we need the policy level again to complete this. Also, you said something that I also feel is important, which was said yesterday by Xian, our co-president in China. And she said, the cost of a CSA is half the cost of the same food in an organic shop in China. So I think that is, you know, all of this comes together. And thank you so much, Dimitri, for being part of this 25th anniversary celebrations of food sovereignty workshop on food sovereignty, solidarity economy, decolonizing our food system. So now I would like to hand over to somebody I work very closely with, Paula Joya, who is actually from Brazil, but based in Germany. Paula is jointly with me representative for the Nyeleni Europe and Central Asia, but she is much more than that. She is actually a member of the IPC operational committee and has been a member of the Via Campesina Central Coordination. Paula, I would like you to maybe show us the way forward a little bit, how you see food sovereignty and solidarity economy as elements of decolonizing the food system, also in terms of all of the things you've been hearing during this seminar, not just maybe what you've prepared, but also reacting a little bit to some of the great input we've had. Over to you.
Thank you, Judith. Unfortunately, my gift with the picture didn't work out technically, so I'm wearing your favorite color, and I hope you also see it as a gift from my side to you, in order to congratulate you for the whole for the amazing work you have been doing in Urgenci for the last several years. No. I think, all the stories and examples that we heard during this session today, and I'm sure the others you heard during the other 2 days where I was not with you, have been showing, how we are building concrete experiences within the frame of food sovereignty, and also clearly contributing to the decolonialization, to decolonizing our food systems. My contribution now will be a bit more general in terms of how all this came. So when Via Campesina first brought the concept, the vision of food sovereignty, as a philosophy of life, in the late 90s, it was a moment where the world was facing quite a lot of conflicts. Hunger was increasing, global warming, poverty, and it was no longer possible to ignore all this. So food sovereignty was born out of this urgent need to respond to this system that is a colonialist and more also a neo-colonialist system. But it was also a response coming from the ground, and offering a vision for a collective future, defining the principles around which we organize our daily living and also our coexistence, not only among ourselves, but also with our planet, what many of us, the indigenous communities especially, call the Mother Earth. And food sovereignty also pays a tribute to our ancestors, to our previous generations, and it promotes justice, it promotes equality, dignity, fraternity, and solidarity. And I think what is very clear and it's part of the work of Urgenci, it is also the issue of solidarity, also in terms of our economies. And I think food sovereignty together with agroecology, they can be considered a science of life, a science that comes from the ground, and which is built through lived realities, and which are spread across the different generations before us, the different cultures that connect us, and that allow us to develop technical innovations, but they are not just some innovations, they are innovations based on our needs and innovations which are in harmony with nature. So I would say food sovereignty is definitely a clear answer to counter the colonialization of our food system. And it is also based on the understanding that we, the people on the ground, are the main actors in the fight against poverty, in the fight against hunger, in the and not the private sector, no, that is constantly being put forward, no, and today more than ever as the levers of change, no. So, and food sovereignty calls for strong local communities, no, for autonomy, no, for decentralization, no, instead a globalized world which is based on monopolies, which is based on exploitation, and especially the exploitation of the poor, no. So I think we saw different examples here today, and as I said, probably also in the day 1 and 2 of your symposium, no. But throughout this 25 years, we had also many other victories, no. And I would say that one important victory was that quickly, no, after Via Campesina announced the concept of food sovereignty in 1996, quickly we formed a movement. And a movement that was creating synergies, no, and connecting social movements from different sectors, no, connecting also other civil society actors, no, and that together we further we quickly built this movement, and quickly we were able also to further define food sovereignty very clear, and we defined it as the right of the peoples who produce, who distribute, and also who consume food, no, as the central actors in the food systems, no. So it is important to put their or our, no, aspirations and needs, no, in the heart of these food systems, no. And for that, it's very, very important to develop public policies, no, that respond to these demands and needs, instead of responding to the demands of the markets. I mean, especially the globalized markets and the corporations. No, so we also managed, for example, to put food sovereignty into the international policy making spaces, no, and we achieved different instruments, no. And one example that I would like to bring, which is key for us as we in Via Campesina, is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People working in rural areas, no. It's a key instrument that recognizes us as right holders, no, and at the same time also recognize food sovereignty as a right, no. Also, some states, no, in different parts of the world have recognized food sovereignty and put it into their constitutions, for example, no. So there are many other examples, and I think also agroecology has already been mentioned here today, no. Agroecology, hand in hand with food sovereignty, no, has also been recognized by the FAO, for example, no, as a central element or a central strategy to our fight against global warming, for example, no. But at the same time, no, during these 25 years, we had these achievements, but the moment we are today is nowhere near perfect. No, we are seeing more and more challenges. No, capitalism is fighting very strong and very cruel against us. No, and against the planet, against the people. No, so the challenges ahead are enormous. No, so we must fight back. We must resist. We must show that we are here, that we exist, and that we want that the future generations also have the right to be here, to exist, to live in dignity. No, so it's not only about our own survival. No, it's also about the survival and the existence of our future generations. Therefore, Via Campesina, together with this big movement that was formed, no, especially with the social movements and organizations involved in the IPC, which is the International Planning Committee for Food Sovereignty, where Urgenci is also part of, no, we are calling for a new process, a global process, to review our strategies, towards food sovereignty in light of the current challenges. And therefore, we are launching a process called Nileni Global Process, which will have strong roots in the different regions. And we are inviting and encouraging you to be active part of it. And for that, I would like to ask Jocelyn to screen a short video that we used to launch this process. And it is at the same time an invitation for you to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for sharing this with us all. And I think that this panel, this plenary, has been to build our collective vision. Today's meetings are all about building a collective vision. I think it's very significant that we have had participation from Maria Rodriguez from the MST, because the MST are part of the Via Campesina. That we have had a contribution from fisheries, from people who are also part of the food sovereignty movement. That we have had the history of our movement. And I would like to add that the social solidarity economy movement will be celebrating 25 years of existence next year. So it is really a sign of the times that we have gone through a cycle from birth to some kind of maturity here, but that there is also a new generation with youth, and essentially in community-supported agriculture, we have not had a youth section until now because so many of our members are in fact young people. And youth is the future. People like me can bring a certain amount of experience to the movement, but it is the youth, it is the future, it is our planet for the future, and how people can overcome hunger, how there can be greater food justice, social, environmental, and economic justice. These are the things we need to collectively work towards. And thank you so much, Paula, for sharing the video to announce the Nyeleni Global Forum. And I'm sure that members of Urgenci from all around the world, from our big global network, will be there in 2023. We've managed to keep to the time. I really thank our panelists from the bottom of my heart. It's been an emotional moment. I certainly wasn't expecting this to be anything like it was, with personal thanks. I mean, that is not what this is about. This is about moving forward collectively as a movement with the other social movements. So thank you very much. And if anybody wants to add anything, we have got 2 minutes left.
Bom, eu quero agradecer, tá muito lindo, assim, tantos seres vivos preocupados nesse momento de tanta crise humanitária, o acirramento da fome, o acirramento dos maus tratos à natureza, flora e fauna, e com tanta gente belas como esse evento de hoje, preocupado no dia a dia em buscar um outro mundo de harmonia e de alimentação e de felicidades a todos, que é a nossa função aqui, com luta, né, das populações, lutas sociais, no mundo onde está tão difícil as ações das corporações. Estamos lutando por socialização e por compartilhar os frutos dessa luta com todos. Assim, eu me sinto muito feliz na luta pela terra, pela reforma agrária, pela agroecologia, pela soberania alimentar, e dividir a produção desse pedaço de terra que ficou na responsabilidade minha, com os meus vizinhos, minhas companheiras e companheiros, as famílias e que também têm necessidades, e os que estão também com esse olhar, contribuindo como coagricultor para poder fazer, conseguir viabilizar essa produção, que são as CSAs. As CSAs com alimento na mesa para as famílias coagricultoras, e eles olhando também e levando esses alimentos a outras pessoas que ainda não estão integradas, aumentando esse movimento. E isso é a economia solidária, muito importante. Viva esse evento, essas lutas que é feita pela Urgenci. Muito obrigada. Tchau.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you 1,000 times. Muito obrigada. And thank you, everybody, from the bottom of my heart. It's been a wonderful moment. I'm so happy you could be here.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you for organizing. Thank you for the session and for the great work.
Thanks, Paula.
See you all soon, hopefully.
See you all. And Kazumi, hide that photo, please. I'm embarrassed by all these pictures, especially Marcus. You showed a picture from my personal life after a cold water Christmas Day swim. That's cheating. Love you all. Thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you, Dima, for being our youth here. And I'll just share a secret. I wasn't going to say it, but I will. Dima is my grandson. So he is the third generation CSA in my family.
That's awesome.
It is. It is. It really is.
I'm going to